Ahoy, brave soul. I would love to share a astrological archetypal weather report on the times that we're in. My hope is to orient you in the world that we're in and help you, empower you to take action to meet your needs in a healthy, regenerative, pleasurable, and fulfilling manner. Oh, yeah, this could be a great time. So, the first thing to know about astrology is that it's a story. We all know how powerful stories are, but most of us are unconscious of them and the most important stories, right? Stories are so important because that's how we orient ourselves in our lives. When we make a choice, a decision, when we're looking over complicated sets of factors and people, things, what we look is for a coherent story. We look at it, it makes logical sense to our minds type thing. And the most powerful stories is what lies in the vast realm of what we consider normal, what makes common sense, what's reasonable. The trouble with normal was beautifully articulated by the late author, philosopher, amazing being, David Foster Wallace. In a commencement speech, he shared the story about an aquatic pathway. And two young fish are swimming around, and this elder fish comes around, kind of Socrates type thing. And he's like, "How's the water?" And they look at him and they're like, "It's fine. It's great. I'm great, old man." Probably didn't say the old man, but they flipped the watch away. And then they flip him away. And then later, one of the fish turns around, one of the young fish. It's like, what the hell is water? And the point that he was trying to make was that the most obvious and ubiquitous, most pervasive and persuasive of the things are the hardest ones to really notice and become aware of. And these almost unseen, unconscious forces have tremendous effect on our health and vitality. Right? Just imagine that you're not a fish and you're in water. No bueno. So, one way to look at this is presented by John Vervaeke, beautiful scientist, speaker, philosopher, also, who shared the example of the agent arena way of lens of seeing our current times. And one way to think about that is sort of imagine a war zone and you are a badass Navy SEAL that's like top on the things, you are a very well matched agent to that arena. On the scale of who's going to survive, you're kind of maybe up there. Um, Another one would be an amazing ballerina performing at Lincoln Center. Right, she has reached the pinnacle of her arena, and so she is a very well adapted agent. The immense challenge right now that's going about is that arena is collapsing, it's dying, it's like not working, right? It's becoming evident. No bueno. And what's to emerge, it hasn't really fully formed, so we're in this liminal state in a vertical type thing. And this state is also totally natural and an essential part of this whole process. So, one way to think of our agent arena idea is from the lens of our worldview and basically how we believe the world and life to work and our place within it. And our current worldview, what's been held for the last 5,000 years or so, is this idea of separation. It's hard to really understand what I mean by separation because that's the water that we swim in. That's our worldview. So, one way that has been super helpful to kind of get a grip on this separation word and what it means is to compare our worldview to virtually every other worldview that's existed for the 200,000 years of humanity, right? The last 5,000 years are just but a blip for the vast majority of our human existence. We held this story of the Great Mother, a story that's still hold fast, held sacred by the mystical and indigenous traditions of this world. A worldview of interconnection and interdependence, this web of life. The amazing part of our current times is that our current scientific understanding of reality of life, our place within it, of our minds, of the psyche, and of the cosmos, is finding, rediscovering what these ancient and indigenous traditions have been telling us throughout time. Underneath all apparent duality, as we venture into the depths of matter in the physical world, we find this paradoxical nature of existence, this Shiva Shakti, this velocity and position type thing that can never really be known, that is interconnected in this magical fashion, that it is responsive and reflective of our inner state. That somehow, some way, we're in this communication, co-participation with creation. That we're not these separate beings, that we're more like a red blood cell within the web of life. Right? We humans are the birth child of two evolutionary trends. So the reason why these worldviews are so important, how they affect every facet of our lives, is that as we emerge into this world, the human species is the birth child of these two evolutionary trends. One is the growing central nervous system expanding, growing into a brain that expands into that neocortex, right? This neocortex gave us a new level of being able to come up with options, to figure things out, to make calculations, to kind of objectify the world and somehow be able to manipulate and control and move our way through that, which is amazing, right? The challenge was that we no longer had our instincts, right? Like if like a deer, a coyote, like they're in tune, they know what's up. So once freed from these instincts, we needed a worldview, a way to orient ourselves into this place so that we could meet our needs, our desires, the hierarchy of needs from Maslow, right? So the first story that we came up with was the story of the Great Mother. We saw ourselves ensouled in a universe that was alive and in constant communication with us, leading us home towards our beloved in this eternal game of creation and peekaboo. We listened to the rustle in the wind, the movement of the waters, the sound of the birds, the stars above, right? Throughout our prehistoric history, we find these ancient monuments that are aligned to the stars. This perfection that offered a map and a guide, right? That held us in right relation and rhythm with nature. The way that I imagine it is an ocean, and that this astrological, astronomical, or archetypal weather is sort of like a wave. And that our work is to practice to become good surfers, right? I imagine it like one of those huge 50, I don't know how big they are off those coasts. And this surfer riding it, right? Like, he trained his entire, they trained their entire lives to be able to have the whereabouts, to be able to maneuver in that situation. Someone who has not practiced, that wave is destruction and death, right? So the most important message I guess I want to convey in this thing is that the weather report is great What really matters is what you're able to do with that. And that is actually your ability to do something about it is actually quite simple. It's been told to us for thousands of years, these ancient, time proven practices of mindfulness and meditation to create that space between stimulus and reaction. Means you're not just taken over by the wave, but you can read it and you can adjust. You're no longer controlled. You're no longer the effect of the outside world, but become the cause of your life. That's what I feel is really the core pivot point from this power over system that has ruled humanity for 5,000 years and made us believe that we're these separate individuals. As these separate individuals, we had to fight and compete against each other in order to survive and to succeed. That made sense. That was common sense. That was normal, right? For the vast majority of our time, we lived under the sword. And someone above you in this hierarchy of power and income inequality, this separation would be free to punish you, beat you, or kill you. And no one would bat an eye, accepted as normal, as common sense. Right? So we all had to obey. And this system is defined by this insatiable desire for power and control. This believing that we'll be safe, belong, taken care of if we just acquire or consume enough things. What the indigenous of Turtle Island described as the Wetigo disease that showed up on their lands through colonialism. This mindset of cannibalism, of eating and desecrating their brothers and sisters, the land, of exterminating core species for the pelts, leaving the mass of rotten bodies. Imagine that, your brothers and sisters skinned and left. Oosh, oosh. So, not to get too deep, but also the atrocities that are going on right now throughout the world. And all these atrocities are made possible by this belief that we're separate. Right? Imagine we knew reality that we're all interconnected, that my health and well being is dependent upon your health and well being, the health and well being of everything. Maybe we could live by the golden rule, right? Treat and love others as you want to be treated, cared for, loved. Wouldn't that be great? No one to fight, no one to war against, no one to cheat, no one to outcompete. This could be a great time, right? So, the vast majority of the other cultures and worldviews were based on interconnection, and most of these saw astrology, even on our Western roots, right? Socrates, and really through Plato, the philosopher 2,500 years ago, um, he saw the heavens as divinity, as the one communicating with us. As he looked into the world, everything went through this cycle of death and decomposition. Nothing was eternal, everything was temporal. Yet the heavens seemed eternal. Right? And thus began this quest to understand the stars. And how is it that there's one sphere of stars that don't really move? And how is this other sphere of planets, of wanderers that operate in a completely different way? This search for this understanding, it is said that at his school, none could enter that hadn't studied astrology, right? The importance of how the one becomes the many. And so the story of astrology is based on these archetypes, these energies, these waves that show up as this possibility, right? of complete polarity, all depending upon how we take it. We can either create it into the surf of our lives, or we can get crushed and killed, and anywhere in between, and in all these different colors. So the inner planets, right, are true the body. We start with Mercury, our minds, Hermes, communication, play, just things of that flowing, almost airy nature. Then we've got Venus, our hearts, truth, beauty, and love, and the essence of like what drives us forth, at the source of creativity and pleasure and home and the feminine and the listening and the grounded. And then we've got Mars, god of war, an archetypal energy that is necessary in this creation of like needing the sword to cut things off so we can have boundaries, so we can clearly define that space around us to take action, to penetrate. And I mean, very easily we can see how that archetype has been taken into the very dark and unhealthy forms over the last 5,000 years, right? This whole patriarchy in one way really got established about 4,000 years ago when there was a climatic change that swept through northern Africa, through the Middle East, and out into Asia, creating the vast deserts of the Sahara, the Gobi, the Middle East. And so all the people, right, we had moved towards agriculture now, and all the people that lived off this land were no longer able to live off the land. So they were forced to become nomadic tribes that became authoritarian, patriarchal led, violent. Standard operation was to kill all the men, rape all the women, and enslave all the children. Within a generation or two, all the stories of the Great Mother and our interconnection were lost. Driven underground, yet it remained through astrology, right? But to the modern world. And then it was seen as this naive, immature way of looking at reality. Now we lived in this grand machine type thing, and believing in omens and believing in creator and source and this interconnected, interwoven, no more. You need a medication if you believe in that. So astrology started to make a resurgence with Carl Jung. Oof. And he knew how huge steps. So he kept it mostly on the down low for like 20 years and really devoted himself to acquiring a mass of evidence and doing the work to see how intercalated, interdependent, what he called synchronicity, like these events that mathematically, reasonably are completely improbable. No way. And that they happen all the time. One of the examples that he shares is that he's sitting with this very challenging patient who's just a genius and can like figure out all the things and just kind of like they have this conversation, but he kind of like there's no real breakthrough because she's that like smart and attuned. And so she shares about a dream, a very sexual, erotic, pleasurable dream. And in that dream, there's a scarab. And when she's sharing the story, there's a knock at the window. And Mr. Jung, Dr. Jung goes and opens the window, and in flies a scarab. The closest, it was this, I don't remember if it was a sexual dream, it was in Egypt, but there was a scarab. Catches a scarab, same color like the closest thing, and hands it over to her and says, "Is this the scarab you've been talking about, dreaming of?" And there she was just like, all right. So then the process really took hold. Another one is Joseph Campbell, who said, follow your bliss, right? Again, and this whole madness, the amazing, beautiful part in this interconnected, interdependent web of universe is that you have all the answers, my dear brave soul. You have your internal guidance system, what the meditation traditions called your witness, your observer, what mystical Western traditions call the seat of your soul, the kingdom of heaven within, what the East calls your Atman in its beloved dance with Braham. To paraphrase Rumi, you are the ocean of consciousness embodied into this amazing biodynamic meat suit called whatever your name is. Wow. Chiquiti, wow. What is referred to in our modern vernacular as being in that flow state, in the proverbial now. And that it's actually quite simple. One way towards looking at it is from your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is what some call your soul nerve that's responsible for a whole, mostly everything in your body. And one of the core things is that it's very generalized. There's some exceptions and definitely nuance there, but for the most part, it's this on-off switch that you're either in survival mode, stressed out, right? Blood flow goes away from your core into your periphery, you're prepared to fight or flight, freeze or fawn, fear, anxiety, or you're downregulated into a calm, creative, regenerative. Blood flow comes back towards the organs. They're empowered to do what they need to do. You are maintained at your optimal performance so you can navigate these waves that are upon us. And the ability to take a stimulus that normally triggers us into reaction and to create a space, right? That's where freedom, that's what this is really all about. That's where you'll find your sovereignty in this whole madness and be able to ride these archetypes by being able to create a space between stimulus and reaction. And again, the time tested practices of meditation and mindfulness that are now being supported by our understanding of the psyche and the cosmos. I'd highly recommend internal family systems as a way to deal with those limiting thoughts and whatever stories makes you believe that you're not taken care of, that you're not, that you, the divinity in disguise. You brave soul, right? Believing in yourself. Bada bing, bada boom resolves the whole thing. So so Carl Jung brings it back. And then in the 60s, this man, Stan Grof, picks it up. And he is one of the first psychiatrists that really starts working with LSD in a systematic, scientific manner and leads thousands of clients, participants into these spaces. And once LSD was made illegal, he discovered this pathway of using your breath called holotropic breath work that gets you into those altered states. Again, reconnecting to the immense power of these practices, harnessing your breath. So, anywho, so these practices, downregulated, higher cognitive realms, emotional awareness, your true reason, your true creativity, and Growth picks it up, and as he helps all these clients heal their trauma in this life. And as they heal through that, as they integrate that, as they face these emotions, they're very cathartic. Was Richard Tarnas, it was like the cost was very high. Like they had to revisit it, these intense periods where this trauma was inflicted and relive those moments. And the practice was creating a container strong enough to help them process that. And as they did, they were freed from these limiting thoughts and gained greater freedom and more love and curiosity and all. So as he leads them further and further, that most of these clients enter these prenatal realms where they connect towards being conceived and being part of the womb and being in this Neptunian type of oneness, bliss type thing, if it's a healthy carriage, and everything being provided, everything that's no longer needed taken away, and just being in this bliss with the one. And then 9 months later, imagine your entire environment, the womb, starts to contract around you. Sometimes crushing bones, pushing you. You're in this constriction and you don't know when it's going to end, right? This is all new. And then it goes on for a bit. And once you reach the crown of the head, right, This is so that was the Saturnian limits, constrictions that are actually pushing you towards a greater growth. You get to this Platonic realm where everything that you knew has to die. Right? The old world, this thing, it's just got to come to an end. And if you're able to midwife that process, then you're birthed into this whole Uranus new world that was completely like imagined in the womb and now out, like, whoa, right? Again, sort of like going into the great mother, the patriarchy, like, whoa, and then patriarchy back to the great mother, like, whoa. So we're like in the, like, whoa. So this archetypal motif was also discovered by Richard Tornes, who, again, he also was a scientist, and he was like, that's for crazy people. You need medication. That's totally not scientific. But the synchronicities were just so kind of pronounced. And one of the things that, as they were working together, they were looking for a manner to predict, like, what would happen in these sessions. And after much research, someone suggested of looking at the archetypes and look at the astrology. And what they discovered it that it was like on point. So the point here is that it's not like predictive. Like it doesn't tell you what's going to happen. It's archetypally predictive. It lets you know what's the flavor. Is it winter? Is it spring? Is it spring with a little warmth of summer wind? Like what's the weather? What's the wave type thing, right? And so the two books, Stan Groff is the Encyclopedia of the Psychonaut. If you're a psychonaut, essential reading. If you're not, yeah, look into holotropic work, breath work. Like all this theory, all these blah, 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 blahs, only really like grounds in by the experience. So highly recommend the experience. Of course, always a sacred container and like really trust your internal guidance system. But I do find these medicines find us when it's time. So trust your diamond, that witness, that seat of your soul to guide you. So, and then Richard Tarnas is Cosmos and Psyche. And he described these periods. And so, the, I think that's enough context. Oh no, so we were at the inner planets. So then you have the asteroids, and then you have Jupiter, which is bright, right? And then at the end, you have Saturn, which is the slowest moving star planet that we can see. It was seen as the end of these two realms, like what held together. And a lot of the associations, like Saturn gets a bad rap, like a lot of like its original associations was associated by Neptune and some of Uranus, of like this search for that other realm, that shaman type of feel that you go through these things because you know that there's a some growth to be had. So that was our known universe for 200,000 years, recorded history until about 1839. I don't know the year, somewhere around there. They discover with the telescope, they discover Uranus, right? Imagine that again. We're in this planet centric, we're the center of the universe. Copernicus knocks us off. Now we're in this other realm that we're just revolving around, and now there's this other thing, and just a completely new way of looking at reality. So this Uranian type of idea, something truly transcendental associated with lightning and the mythic hero of Prometheus, right? So Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. And Zeus was pissed. So his punishment was to have his liver eaten out by an eagle every day, only to regrow at night and have it eaten the next day. And that went on for a hot minute, but like that's the Uranus. Like, we need fire, and I'm gonna go through that. And then on that story, there's this beautiful twist in the plot. This other character, Chiron, which is referred towards as the wounded healer, he goes to Zeus and he says, I will take his place. What he did was on point. You are wrong, Zeus. For that, I'm going to take his spot. So this belief, this knowing, this devotion towards the truth and doing the healing thing, So you got Chiron, you got Uranus, then you've got Neptune, the watery planet, sort of associated as like the second octave of Venus, like this universal love, this oneness, this interconnected, interdependent, this oceanic, this blending of our um, uh, self and other. And then you got Pluto, Shiva, Kali, death, destruction, winter, but also like the underworld, the unconscious, where we find the gems, where we are able to go through that alchemical transformation. So, yes, now I feel it might be enough context. So, one of the cycles, one of the things that I love about this is just like it's like stories on stories and developments on developments. And I think to start with the really good news. Like right now, the outer planets are in this beautiful sextile, um, 60, 120, like very mutually receptive, like very helpful. Like, right, in astrology, the angles are hard or soft. So hard angles are like the 90 degrees, the 180s, the oppositions, the 270s, right? Like a hard corner. Like when there's up those things, it's like a confrontation. We're kind of getting down. It's kind of like Mars, right? Saturn, right? So when they're at the 60 and the 120, it's more soft. It's like, hey, what's up? How can we work together? What's going on? What are you doing tonight? And associated with Venus, love, and Jupiter expansion. So right now the outer planets are in this like beautiful 60, 120, and they're in this for like another 2, 3 years for a minute. They're gonna be in this conversation, which I feel is like the underlying tone, right? I feel that the outer planets sort of set the bass and maybe even the rhythm and like the overlong story. And why I have such hope for this is that there was this time period about 500 BC called the Axial Age. It's called this because there was a blossoming, this evolution of consciousness that was articulated, embodied by Lao Tzu and the I Ching, Confucius, Buddha, and Buddhism. Um, Sohafrasian, there's like a Socrates. There's all these flourishings of these beings that got a hold of the old school story and brought it in and like, hey, we're interconnected, we're interdependent. Let's get into rhythm with this. This is how life works. There's a growth, there's a death, there's a rebirth type thing. Let's get in rhythm with the cycles. No, we didn't listen. So we could say we're at the end of a 5,000 year cycle because there's this super interesting conjunction that happened in like January from 2019 to like December 2020 when Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto did all this crazy conjunctions of being in the same spot. Like that's the most intense. Like imagine two like gangsters in the same room that are totally like right? So all three of those were in the same spot. So Pluto, death, regeneration, corruption, unconscious, magnified by Jupiter. You get the pandemic, right? Saturn, constrictions and limitations, and you get the lockdown, that constriction type thing. So Jupiter and Saturn, as the pandemic and the lockdown went away, Saturn and Jupiter exited Capricorn. So this conjunction happened at the last degrees of Capricorn. Capricorn, some associated with the patriarchy. One of my favorite astrologers associates it with Pan and like this female energy of a Saturn and like, yeah, the groundedness of nature. And in some ways, also some astrologers saw it because this conjunction, super rare, happened in 787 and the rise of Babylon. So some astrologers saw it as the rise of the patriarchy and the fall of the patriarchy. And so that started during that time period. And then Pluto has been doing this like, intense back and forth between that last degree. So that last degree is called the anaretic degree. One astrologer calls it the killing degree. He's quite goth sometimes. And it's called that. And the way that I kind of imagine it, it is like the yin yang. And how would it feel for the seed of the yin to transform the yang into its complete opposite? How does one thing die, another thing to be born? So this happens at the last degree of every sign. And so Pluto has been doing this dance of going back and forth. And it went back into Pluto for into Capricorn for the last time on like September 3rd. It went direct a couple of weeks ago, and then it exits Capricorn for good for the next 248 years on November 19th. So, one way to look at this is like a very, 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 very long race. And everyone's exhausted, and everyone's cranky, and everyone's angry, and everyone's like, like, look out there. And really, the call to be able to stay down regulated, to be cool, to understand that this is a natural process. So, a little bit more detail. So, as Pluto's on these last degrees, also associated with like the father and just like, so the inner planets have been doing this pretty intense dance with all the three planets, right? So, they're all in this reception. So, as they go and have a conversation with each one of them, they have a conversation with Uranus first, then Neptune, and then Pluto. So, Mercury and Venus have gone through that. Mars is now at the end of that with Pluto. It just went opposite this morning. Oof. And one way, like again, the negative way is like this deep corruption, this unhealthy male energy of domination, of extraction, of taking, of penetrating, of raping, of pillaging, of deceiving, of corruption, of stealing, of having this like plutonic underworld force that's then harnessed by this sword to do something nasty. Bleh, bleh, no bueno. Or on the other side of this stand of protecting everything that's sacred and essential for life, of like really embodying this power to take action, to have will, right? That's in service to this volcanic, tectonic power of Pluto to support us in this transformation, right? So we have that opposition of like this will and this underworld at this like new moon that just happened, guess where? In Scorpio. So you've got this same thing coming over and over. One of my favorite stories about Scorpio, it's like the dark underworld, right? Like the unconscious again. And the gatekeeper of like our basement and like that room that's way in the back that no one goes to, right? And you feel the calling to actually finally look at that. And as you approach this and as you reach this corner of darkness and Scorpio's there with his fencer, poisonous, ready to strike, and that if you're able to stay down-regulated and keep an open heart, that Scorpio then shares the gifts and the treasures and grants you access to its higher cognitive octaves of the ego that gives you sight and vision to see the path in your life that transforms into the phoenix of whatever challenges, of whatever darkness, of whatever things that you felt were off are transmuted into this new fire, into this bird of creation, right? So that's also like the times that we're in, like super challenging. The way that I think about it is this huge 50, 100-foot wave right off those coasts. And it's like either you show up with your practice and try to ride the wave as best as you can, or you're going to get crushed. The wave is here, right? A great wave will be upon us. Winter is here. So you've got this Mars thing, and then it's in Cancer, right? And it's fall of the home of the moon. So again, you have these polarities: the moon, the home, the safety, the calmness, the nurturing. And you've got Mars, the severing, the cutting, the independence. And like one way we think about it is like a mother-child relationship. Like one of the suckiest things is to be cut off from your mom. And one of the most important and essential is to kind of grow your independence from your mom and kind of cut yourself off from her teat. So that these archetypal energies, neither good nor bad, they're necessary and appropriate at different times, and how do we work with them? So, in the past, this Mars in Cancer has been associated with women's rights and their reproductive organs, and both the positive and the negative, and freedoms taken away and granted. So, the protection of home, and again, the other way of looking at Scorpio is that one way that it uses these times to really make us see what are our attachments, what are no longer healthy, and also to get the clarity of like what do we really value, what's good for us, and to really protect that with that spincer, like, right, it's like this jewel type thing, like makes us see what's no longer needed. Very Mars is like the home of Mars, the watery home of Mars. So there's also like all this water. This was this grand trine with Mars, Venus, and Saturn about a couple of weeks ago. So very emotional, very, so what I loved about the perspective that I gained is that most people associate water with emotions. And another way of looking at it is that emotions are one way to understand water and that elemental force that adapts, that moves, that's kind of unpredictable. So, a lot of water, a lot of deep emotions. And we come into this Pluto thing and in the opposition right before the elections. And then it goes into Leo, which is like then magnified of like, okay, the Leo force energy, is it like self aggrandizement, or is it in service to something good? And having again this polarity. Mr. Trump has Mars in the 12th house, I believe, or what I was hearing. And one of the archetypal significance is trying to be significant at all costs, trying to win at all costs, and leading to really shady and um, nefarious ways of trying to move things towards them winning. Right, so Leo goes into Leo, then starts his retrograde, then it hits its other opposition. Got to check the dates, but like on inaugural day, January 20th, and then it goes back towards where it's been into Cancer and all those things again, and then it reaches back towards this point that we're at around April 26th or something like that. So we're like in the final countdown. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Um, like again, at the end of this long race. And what I love about these long races is this is where like the cream of the crop, the champions, right? Like this is where like the point in the movie that we all come to see. Can the hero, heroine, they get up to meet the challenges? Can they find the strength in these overwhelming odds in this plutonic Mars corruption? Like what's going on? And the amazing part is again where in astrology and obeys follows the hermetic principles, which are found in virtually all mystical and indigenous traditions. One is it's all one, it's all mine, it's all like this source of creation, the Tao, this unnamable that is what did they say, the point of all existence with infinite radius that has no circumference, right? Unnamable, undefinable, but it's everywhere. So this one is like this infinite universe is also governed by this uh, correspondence, as above so below, as above so within, as without, right? Like this mirror reflection of things, this fractal nature virtual world, what the ancient East called Maya, right? Now that it's like this illusion, but it was like much more of this creative substratum of that gave us the ability to manifest and work with this energy in the universe, right? What our current science is rediscovering, that at the essence of matter, at the very quantum of particles, they are responsive and reflective to our inner state. We are in this co creative, co participation process with the whole thing. So, in this whole spectrum of existence, it's all in vibration. There's different frequencies. You can think of sound, you can think of light. There's variance, right? Maybe our transcendental forces are on the next level. We can't see them just yet, are attuned. Like what we can see is just a tiny percentage of what's actually out there. Like this dark matter, 75% of our universe, we have no idea what it is. It's just out there. So, vibration, in this vibration, there's a polarity, right? For every black, there's a white. For every good, there's a bad. For every growth, there's a death. There's this yin yang type of container. Within this container, it goes through a natural rhythm of going from life to death to white to black to the down the stream, and this ever flowing natural rhythm and polarity of life. A rhythm we have sorely disconnected in this belief of separation. There's now, we're in winter and we've got to adapt. So poorly rhythm and then cause and effect, right? That in this interconnected thing, you do one thing, you have an equal and opposite reaction, the physics of this all. And in this physics, that really, this is another way of looking at the core change in these two worldviews. That either we're power over, ruled, trying controlled by the outer world, trying to figure out to do the right thing so that we can get what we want, and never quite really succeeding, and usually ending up sabotaging our lives and creating pain and disconnection for ourselves and for others. No bueno hasn't worked for 5,000 years. It's dying. Let it go. Or power within, trusting yourself, following your calling, right? Knowing that you're in your own holographic universe and the day, the moment is what's needed for you right now, right? Knowing that each moment is the perfect medicine for your growth and evolution. So, this power over power within can be seen as either you're the effect of the outer world being ruled, stressed out, reacting to life, or you're the cause of your life, taking action from your core, from your true wants, needs, and desires, down regulating, harnessing your higher cognitive realms, right? Back to that vagus nerve. The amazing part of this resurgence of meditation and mindfulness coupled with science is it letting us know exactly how this works, right? From a brainwave perspective, it's very much almost like music. And that when we're stressed out, when we're reacting to life, when there's survival mode, we're in these high beta brainwave states. So we're like high techno, heavy metal, not a lot of rhythm, but really great at getting shit done. This is where all the programs that we've learned to do functional things like cook rice, drive, like when we need to do those things, we just go there and we don't need to figure out what pot to use, how to rinse rice, what's the proportion. We just know. We just know how to drive. We don't have to learn the whole brake clutch type thing. It's just in our bodies. So really good at shit, getting shit done, but it only does what we've already learned. And in here is where our trauma, our set of limiting thoughts, emotions, beliefs, stories about the world and our place within it, the story of separation lives there that triggers us every single time we face that situation that's kind of similar towards our youth, right? So that most of us are living, we live in a world that's designed to stress us out. Like we are worrying about our political spectrum, about our uncertain economic future, about our cultural divide, climate change. Like it goes on, worrying about things that as individuals we have no control and cannot affect, right? Stressing us out and we're not really solving it. Or we regain our sovereignty and devote ourselves to taking action to what is within our control. What can we affect? And usually the most powerful is your nervous system. Are you reacting, ruled by your ineffective and unhealthy patterns, or are you downregulated in that space between stimulus and reaction? Simple yet epically challenging, right? We literally feel as if we're going to be killed if we speak our truth, that constriction in our throat, that knot in our stomachs if we ask for what we need, that weight on our shoulders for taking burdens and arms to carry, but we're trying to people please, trying to figure out the right thing to say, do, or be to get what we need, to play our part, to feel safe, to feel that we belong, to feel that we love. Doesn't work, didn't work for me. usually creates more pain, disconnection, and suffering for myself and others. And that the only way is to be truthful, to communicate what's actually going on inside of me. Very challenging because it feels like I'm going to be killed. The tragic, empowering, amazing irony, is that 99.999% of the time that we're triggered, we're actually physically safe. And that, my friends, my brave souls, I feel is the front lines of our evolution, of our ability to harness this wave and to enact the greatest comeback of all time, creating a whole new world, right? Simply by you being able to take a breath. What Racine McKenna in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, describes as clean pain or dirty pain, right? Clean pain is that pain of disconnection, of running away, of punching back, of getting angry, of decimating people, of perpetuating the cycle of violence. We all know where that leads, creating more pain, disconnection, suffering for ourselves and for others, right? Or in those moments when we triggered, when we feel like we've got fight and flight, we take a breath and we downregulate and we get sober to reality. We're safe. We can trust ourselves. It's okay. Speak your truth. That's what he calls clean pain. This pain alchemizes, transforms, heals, empowers, all of that. Creating, bringing parts of ourselves back into the circle of welcoming, creating bonds of connection and interdependence, building the whole web of life, one moment, one conversation at a time. That, my brave souls, I believe is the front lines of our evolution. And right now, everything is triggering the fuck out of us. We live in a world that's designed to stress us out, right? So, the importance for me, again, the practice. This comes down towards time. Where do you invest your time? What I have found the most effective is as soon as you wake up, you show up for yourself. 20 minutes, 5 minutes, I would recommend at least an hour, but start small. What you're looking for is consistency, right? We're not trying to slay the dragon. We're trying to chop wood and carry water, right? Sustainable, dependable, consistent. What this does is that it verifies that it actually takes action towards this co-shift. Power over or power within. Who do you show up first thing in the morning? You. You do what you need, take care of yourself to fill your cup, because that's the only way you're going to be able to walk in the world and help others, right? Most of us are programmed to boom, phones, work, taking care of shit. Outer world, what are our responsibilities, right? No bueno, that's the front lines. First thing in the morning, your practice. If I got a lot more suggestions and starting the course Sudish to support you all, midday practice, right? Set an alarm, and when that reminder goes off, pause. Where has your mind and heart been, right? Have those limiting thoughts, those things kind of taking you, has your mind gone blah, 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 blah. And if it has, just notice, be kind and gentle. It's like, okay. And do a little meditation. Come back, down, regulate it, take care of your nervous system. Then an evening practice. When you do that for 21 days, I guarantee your life will transform, right? Super simple. Again, it's a practice showing up on a consistent and heart-centered manner. That's the only way we're going to build the skills and the tool sets to be able to navigate these great waves upon us. So, in short, we are at the pinnacle of our cosmological 13.8 billion year love story. We, as the one, created the universe. We've come to this intense polarization of duality where we continue with this idea of separation and die apart as fools. Or we remember we're the one by trusting ourselves, by finding that inner diamond, that braham, that witness, that seed of the soul, finding your medicine, right? And paradoxically, as you go within, you connect to the outer world, remembering how to trust the universe, remembering that your gifts are like the hemoglobin of the red blood cell, that you are a supported part of the web of life, riding this wave, letting go of normal, returning. So again, how the astrology is a vital map, and I'm gonna put the link of my astrologer. I just love his perspective. He just like really ties in the theory, the hermetic principles, the life philosophy, these conversations with the divine into practical ways that you can kind of see and be in that conversation. Dancing with the beloved. Ay, qué rico. Dame más. So, yes, very challenging times, yet we have this amazing Neptunian Uranus Pluto thing that could lead us with a whole new consciousness, right? Creation of a whole new world, a way of being that you and future generations can be proud of. Imagine that. Remembering we are one, that we're interconnected, interdependent, that empowers us to actually live the golden rule, being able to treat and care and love each other as we wish to be treated. Wouldn't that be something? Living by the golden rule? I'm down. So, yes, my brave souls, my hope, my prayer is that you descend into your innermost cave to follow your inner calling, to engage those moments, to do your best to cultivate your tools and skills, to be able to work with the challenging situations in a healthy way, leaning into clean pain, leaning into uncomfortableness. Uh, and developing your ability to listen to yourself first through that meditation practice. What does your body feel? Reclaiming your feelings, reconnecting towards your body, seeking to understand where these parts came from, where are the others, cultivating your ability to forgive, unleashing your transcendental powers of love, mercy, and compassion. Transcendental in the literal sense, as in being able to bend time and space. Again, back towards that brainwave state. When you're able to get into gratitude, into love, into compassion, you get into those higher cognitive realms and you somehow become an antenna that kind of like is attuned. You become the one. Well, so they say. Still haven't gotten there. I'm fucking a little lost myself. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. Oh, last thing I'll share. The thing about Mars, this intense Mars time, I got super intense with people and like really drew some hard boundaries and kind of brought out the sword pretty hard. And afterwards, I was like, shit, did I cut some people that didn't need to be cut? And then one of the astrologers were like, hey, this is the energies. This is kind of like the wave, like be kind to yourself. And another one was that this Mars is sort of like a self-cleaning oven. That yes, you will cross boundaries, you may not go far enough. And that by taking action and then being in the inquiry, did you get where you wanted to go? Did you get, are you who you want to be, who you say you were? Did you take care of the people? Did you get what you wanted? And then you stay in that inquiry and keep adjusting this Mars's action until you get into resonance. It's like this thing. It's a wave that you keep in conversation to kind of tune, and you're going to go up and down and be kind and gentle to yourself. So please, that's, I would say, one of the other key things. Bring in the feminine. Each day have a check-in of a very yang, hey, how did I do? So in this whole thing, what I'd also recommend, the third pillar. So we've got meditation, mindfulness, internal family systems, trauma, and then getting yang and making a plan, 1 year plan. What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What's calling you forth? Get concrete and break it down into daily goals, right? And each night you check in. How did you do? Did you do what you were going to say? And when you don't, usually what you'll find is that this part, this limiting thought kind of stopped you. So then you can work with the system. You can work, highly recommend, with a coach, join my programs, and you do this iterative process where you gain greater and greater liberation. So it's not so much of like reaching the top of the Himalayas, but learning how to be with the journey, right? And learning to be attuned with yourself and being on that adventurous spirit. So yeah, wondering if to get into the holographic. No, I said an hour. I'll get into the holographic virtual world type thing. We're in the pinnacle of our own movies. Great, great souls. You are much more than this human meat suit. You are a soul having a physical experience. I feel the work is to be able to ride this wave, to enjoy it. Are we being triggered, feared, freaking out? Are we down regulated, meeting the challenges as best we can? Clean pain or dirty pain? Simple, epically challenging. We got this. We're the ones we have been waiting for. Again, yar, yar. Oh, so yeah, if you like, please, 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 please subscribe, send me a message, comments, help me go get this word out. Pretty, 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 please. Any questions, let me know. Yeah. Hope you're all well. This indeed could be a great time. Y'all are.